For those of you that don't know me, my name is Barry Cranford. I'm the founder of the FCC, and we started it way back in 2022, just to see if it would be useful to bring various people together from this new term that seemed to be trending, which was fractionals. And now it seems to have blown up since then. So many people doing this kind of work now. It's been a really popular community. So we've got a Slack group of about 1,500 people on there. Anyone that's joined that's not part of that Slack group is free to join. I'll send around a document. I should have a link on there shortly. Secondly, we've recently started something called Network Extenders. I know they've got a few people here from that initiative, which is around the idea of hunting in packs as fractionals. So how it might be okay for you to go out if you go to a networking event, for example, and somebody's looking for you, great. But if they're looking for if you're a CMO, they're looking for a CFO or a CTO, and it's trying to extend your network so that there's a bit of a group of you to pass around leads. It's only recently started. It's going quite well so far. So I'll have some links on that if anyone's interested in that. And on to the man of the hour, Lior. So Lior was first introduced to me by a fractional CTO who started and went from 0 to like 4 or 5 clients immediately. And I asked him how he was doing it, and he told me about this organization called CTOs and said that I had to meet Lior. He's told me about a few of the things that he's done through this organization. I know we'll talk about this. But we had Lior earlier in the year, 3 months ago, I think, which was for a session around networking, which was extremely popular, went down really well. So if anyone missed that as well, do let me know. And in fact, Lior, one final thing that I forgot to mention, I'm going to mention now, and then I will zip it. We also will be putting a document on the chat. So if you would like to connect with other people on the call, please do. So just add in your LinkedIn details onto that, and then feel free to connect with anyone else that's on there. And hopefully you'll walk away with 20 or so new contacts that you didn't know 5 minutes ago. Anyway, Lior, I'll leave it to you to go from here.
Thank you, Barry. And, I prepared for you. We were trying to think, okay, how can we give value? And I'll give you some background about the program. So we started CTOX about 2 years ago and onboarded first members about 1.5 years ago. And we have about 260 or so CTOs run through the program. And I've been a fractional CTO for years, and that's kind of how it came. Like, how can we get all these how can I give people all of the lessons and none of my scars? They'll have their own scars. You'll have your own scars, but none of mine. So save you some time. And so I brought a bunch of slides to try and just help you make money. So if you listen to what I have to say today, and you can also email us after to get some downloadables and stuff you can use. This is real stuff we do in the program to help people make money. That'll be great. And at the same time, I'm kind of listening to those first prompts here. If you want to do some Q&A, we can do that as well. And Barry, we can also do just a general kind of fireside session at some point. Might be better than just like a presentation format. Of course, feel free to connect on LinkedIn, send me love letters, like all the things that are going to make me feel happy would be highly valuable. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. In the meantime, if there's any questions that come up, feel free to put them in the chat, raise your hand, and sounds good to everybody. Sweet. Okay. Really glad you're here. So today I'm going to show you how you can add between 36,000 and 100,000 to your bottom line the next year while working just 2 to 4 hours a week. This is absolutely possible, and I'm going to show you exactly how to structure it. So today's promise is simple. I'm going to show you how to scale smart, not scale hard. Most of the people who want to grow their income assume they have to grow their hours. We're big on not using hours and CTOX or their stress or their operations. So I'm going to challenge those assumptions and show you a better way, hopefully. And this session is specifically for people who already have real expertise, meaning you're good at what you do, you already deliver value, but you want meaningful and noticeable revenue growth without adding more hours and without building a big machine of staff, operations, and internal processes to manage, just leverage. So let me walk you through exactly who is this for, because this will help you see why the model works so well. So one, solo professionals. You run your own business. You're the talent. You create the outcome. You want to grow without becoming a manager of people. Or as a service provider, you might already be delivering done-for-you work, but deep down, you know that done-for-you work caps your time and caps your income. You may already consult, but it's unstructured, inconsistent, not packaged. So today, I'll show you how to make it a little bit more predictable and leverageable. Or maybe you operate independently and you like it that way, and the model lets you stay independent and significantly increases your earnings. But as I mentioned earlier, the entire framework assumes that you already have deep professional value. We're going to amplify the skills you already have with a better business model. If you feel your income doesn't match your abilities, you're in the right place. I argue most people are here severely under leveraged, and hopefully that ends today. Now, before I go into the model, I want to give you a quick background about who I am and where this came from. I'm an active fractional CTO with a 7-figure practice. I've worked with 8- and 9-figure revenue companies. I've built technology systems for years and helped hundreds of professionals transition into leveraged business models, all while traveling over the world with my wife and 3 kids. We homeschool and travel. It's a lot of fun. These are some of the companies I've helped. I'm not showing this to impress you, but to impress upon you that once you understand leverage, your expertise becomes incredibly valuable to the right businesses. Before I discovered this model, I was, to be honest, overworked. I was running an agency, 10, 12, 14-hour days, too many clients, too much control, not enough actual freedom. And I don't know if anybody here can relate to that. After shifting into the fractional model, I went from over 60 hours per week to a handful of high-quality engagements, earning more while working dramatically less. And I built CTOX because this model changed my life. And I realized most professionals had the expertise to replicate it, but they didn't have the structure. So today, you learn the structure. And let me tell you exactly what I want you to take away from this call. I'm going to show you every step you need to add between 36,000 and 100,000 to your bottom line over the next year. No team, no VAs, no employees, no overhead, unless you want to, of course. You also won't need complicated operations, automations, funnels, or machinery. This bolts on to what you're already doing. And this is possible with about 2 to 4 hours per week of focused action per client. I'll also give you some simple templates and scripts you can use immediately. And yeah, let's talk about the trap that keeps people stuck, because most people in your position are caught in the same loop. You're doing a ton of work, but the output doesn't match the input. You don't actually know which actions drive results and which ones are noise. Marketing feels like throwing spaghetti at the wall. There's no system. And because of that, revenue is inconsistent. Some months are great, some months are not. Deep down, maybe you're nervous. If I do grow, I lose my time, my life, my sanity. We see it all the time in the accelerator. And your internal dialogue probably sounds like this: a quiet voice that says something about this isn't working the way it should. You know your value is higher than your income, but you haven't connected the two. You want simplicity, not more complexity. And here's why you feel stuck. You believe the only way to grow is work more. That's the most dangerous misconception in the professional life. It's absolutely false. Growth is not tied into hours. It's tied into leverage. And there are 4 major misconceptions that cause professionals to stall. First misconception is that sales takes a ton of time and money. That is not true when you're selling expertise versus execution. Selling expertise is fast, it's clean, it's simple when structured correctly. The second misconception is, I need a big audience. You do not need a big audience. You need a specific offer and a way to activate your accessible network. A small targeted circle outperforms a giant audience every time. The third misconception is that you don't have a network. Everyone has a network. You just haven't been taught who to look for or how to activate them. Past clients, colleagues, partners, account managers, acquaintances. These are humans you know in your life, and I know everybody here knows at least one more human. I argue you already know enough people to earn 6 figures. The fourth misconception is that you need funnels, ads, or agencies. You don't. This is a smart scaling model. 0 funnels, 0 ads, 0 complexity. This is about conversations, not campaigns. So these misconceptions fuel a set of fears that hold people back from even trying. I don't want to bug people. Completely normal fear if you're being pushy and transactional. With the structure I'll share with you today for outreach, you'll never feel like you're bugging anyone because you won't be. Here's another fear. My network is too small. In practice, after coaching over 250 CTOs, this is almost never true. Most people dramatically underestimate the size and value of the relationships they've built over a career. And here's another fear. What if nothing happens? Well, deep down, this is the fear of uncertainty, not failure. And when you use a leverage-based system, things do happen. Perhaps you've tried a networking-based approach and it didn't work. Now, I don't know what you tried, but I argue that the best strategies you tried weren't wrong, but they were likely incomplete because you didn't have a system that compounds over time. I want to show you how someone overcame these fears quickly using this exact model. Sanjay is a perfect example of how leverage works. His story captures exactly what's possible. Sanjay had experience working for an immigration law firm. He had a full-time job. He had led several successful AI initiatives and oversaw seven-figure software implementation. Those results created trust and a strong reputation. He didn't have a massive network. He didn't have a big audience. He didn't have a system, but he had experience. I helped him see this past experience was a niche. Immigration law firms, simple, clear, specific. He didn't have to implement it to be a full-time CTO. He positioned himself as a strategic advisor. Extremely low hours, extremely high leverage. Within 3 weeks, Sanjay was paid $7,500 to lead a workshop, something he had never done before. That's leverage value. Then he closed 2 long-term fractional CTO agreements with law firms in his ideal niche. Again, small audience, huge result. He recovered all of this investment in our accelerator in the first few months and decided to keep building towards a larger practice. In 2025, he crossed $1 million in revenue. The big lesson from Sanjay's story is simple. Your past experience is the fastest way to identify a leverage niche. Now, fear is normal. Every professional feels fear at the beginning. Don't treat this as a signal that the model won't work. Treat it as a signal that you're stepping into something new. That's it. Once you see how simple and structured this is, fear goes away. Clarity replaces it. And here's the good news. You don't need to overhaul your business or start from scratch. The model fits around what you already do. No need to burn anything down. You don't need to invent a new offer. You already have the expertise we will leverage. Now, as I mentioned earlier, no ads, no funnels, no complicated marketing, none of that. You only need 3 things to add $36,000 to $100,000 this year. First, a leverage offer that allows you to deliver massive value in minimal time. Next is the right people to talk to, and you already know those people. They're in your network. And the third is a simple diagnostic conversation. That's all you need. No pitching. Now, let me show you the gaps most professionals have. So you probably haven't packaged your existing value into a leverage-friendly format. You likely haven't mapped out the relationships you already have access to, and you probably don't have a step-by-step conversation system that converts without selling. And that makes outreach feel scary because you don't have the language that works. Most people stop after 2 outreach messages. You need a process that guides you. With a 2 to 4 hour per week plan, you will see meaningful movement fast. This is the system that consistently produces revenue for fractional CTOs. This is actual things we teach inside our accelerator. So first, we need clarity. We need to clarify your leverage, what you offer, who you help, and why. This is the foundation. Your leverage offer is what lets you work fewer hours while earning more. Now, you don't sell time. You sell outcome, expertise, judgment, discernment, insight. This is what advisors get paid for. If you apply this insight alone starting today, you can make more from your contracts on your contracts. So step 1, we begin by identifying the high leverage transformation you already deliver, even if you've never named it before. What gets better, faster, cheaper, easier, or bigger because you were involved? One example of a high leverage transformation you may already deliver is reducing delivery times or helping teams move faster. This is very common. Your specifics may be different, but the underlying pattern is the same. Take something chaotic and make it predictable. Maybe your transformation is improving visibility. When I'm talking to non-technical CEOs, I call this turning black boxes to glass boxes. It's easy to underestimate how valuable clarity is. When you improve a CEO's ability to see what's happening, whether it's in their pitch, operations, customer systems, you unlock massive value with very little time invested. Now, how about streamlining processes? This is a huge transformation. Most companies run on duct tape. You come in, clean up processes, and suddenly the business runs smoother without doing any of the execution yourself. Another transformation is strengthening operations, which are often fragile. You identify the weak points and you recommend changes. This is leverage. You're not doing the work, hands-on keyboard, you're advising, diagnosing, guiding. Most businesses don't need more people or more tools. They need better systems. Helping a team scale without additional headcount is one of the most valuable transformations you can offer. Standardization is one of the simplest and highest ROI transformation. You help teams rely on heroic effort and start relying on structure. Now, these are just examples. My point is that you already deliver a repeatable transformation. We just have to name it, package it, and sell it. That makes sense to everyone? Now, once you identify your transformation, strip the delivery down to the core actions that move the needle. No fluff, no bloat, no heavy lifting. Most people overcomplicate their offer. Complexity kills leverage. Simplicity is profitable. Remember, your job is not to execute. Your job is to diagnose. Companies will happily handle the implementation if you give them a clear map. Now, for this model to work, you need to avoid custom one-off work. Predictable frameworks scale your time. Once the transformation and delivery are clear, you can package your expertise into a leveraged offer. Now, strategic advisory is the simplest and most profitable model we guide people in the accelerator. You guide decisions and you remove uncertainty. Very little time, high value. Fractional leadership is where you're the CTO, CPO, COO, CISO of a business for a fraction of the cost. At CTOX, we call this the engaged level of service. Again, you're leading, not executing, but remember for this webinar, kind of focusing specifically on the advisor level of service. Now, a short assessment followed by a roadmap is an incredibly leveraged way to deliver clarity, and it often turns into advisory retainers. A done-for-you hybrid is where you help teams implement the roadmap, but without doing the work yourself. The essence of the advisor offering is a monthly retainer with clear constraints, predictable touchpoints, and high-value decision support. So it's a retainer with boundaries. Now, for example, I've had countless of CTOX Accelerator members go from zero to leverage earnings like 10, 15 hours per month and just a few hours per week using this structure. This is not theoretical. It's extremely repeatable, something like 4 hours a week to 10,000 a month. So phase one is simple. You already have the expertise. We simplify the delivery. We package it into a leverage format. That's how you make more while working less. Now let's move to phase two, connect. And by the way, we have, again, templates, tools. We'll give you all of that if you email us after. In our world, that means activating your network. You want to connect. You're not going to get any contracts without any contacts, without any conversations. Now, you probably already know enough people to add 36,000 to 100,000 a year. Activation is how you turn relationships into conversations and conversations into clients. That's what we say when we mean activation. Now, most people think they don't have a network. And while I don't know you and your network, I'd argue chances are that it's bigger than you think. The way to know is to map it. So let's start mapping. These are some of our favorite examples how people map their network. Let's start with your past clients, past colleagues, past everything, especially the success stories. These are the warmest people in your world. They already trust you and have experienced the results of your leadership. Your current clients usually want more of your expertise versus more of your hours. If you're doing hands-on work for clients now, think about how you can create even bigger results with a strategic leadership focus. Now, don't forget your former colleagues. They know your strengths and they have their own professional networks outside of yours. These are high-trust relationships that you can convert into new connections quickly. I can't stress this enough, by the way. Any person that you worked with in the last 20 years, they trust you because of you. It has nothing to do with, do they know your current offering and would they buy it? It's an easy conversation. Now, former managers and leaders you've worked with, anyone who has ever relied on you in their organization is a strong source of prospects or connections. Now, you guys have been in business for a while. You know that people you met 15 and 10 years ago are now more senior and they have more connections and more power, more reach. Now, how about partners and vendors you work with over the years? These people see behind the scenes at companies and they know who needs help. If you work with software account managers, they could unlock marketing channel partnerships where your embedded leaderships helps the product stick with clients. That's actually one of the ways Sanjay ended up getting some of his clients. Because of that $1 million integration he had done, that company now started bringing in for sales and sales support. And then he managed to get clients. Industry peers in your field often refer work they can't take or don't want to. We see this all the time at CTOX, by the way, when somebody gets a prospect who needs a niche expertise like cybersecurity or federal stuff, or wants a leader in a particular time zone or geographic region, and then they just share. Now, you likely belong to Slack groups, alumni network, mastermind groups. Communities and groups are gold. Actually, you just had a story a few days ago. One of our CTOs went to a men's retreat, and he was working on his laptop. And a guy asked him, what is he doing? And then he told him, I'm a fractional CTO. And he hired him 3 days later for a $10,000 a month retainer. Incredible. Communities and groups are a big deal. And it doesn't need to be tech groups or business groups. Okay, just other humans. We're all humans. We live together on Earth. Just meet other people. Now, anyone who has ever showed interest in your expertise, so cold leads that warmed over time, even if they didn't buy, is part of your network. So again, the mental model is who already knows you as a person. Cold leads on an email list can be nurtured into prospects over time. So if that exists for you, that's certainly a great source. Now, after you map your network, this is very easy, guys. In the program, when we have people do it on the template, it takes them maybe 10 minutes and they suddenly see they can write down 5 or 10 names to talk to. And until we prompt them for it, they just don't think about it. So after you map your network, it's time to use strategic language to open conversations without selling. Now, here's a simple flow that makes outreach feel natural, honest, and pressure-free. Problem, possibility, invitation. So here's a simple script. Hi, name. I've been helping companies with their cybersecurity. If that's something you're thinking about, happy to share what's been working. No pitch, pure value, very simple. Now, the third step here is an outreach script. This is the low-lift message that starts real conversation. Hey, John, quick question. Do you know anyone dealing with whatever pain point who might want to talk through a few ideas? This works because you're not asking them to hire you. You're asking for perspective. Now, the mental model we share is if you ask for money, you get advice. If you ask advice, you get money. So generally in conversation, try to pitch for advice. If you're asking for clients, you're generally going to get a no. It's a safer thing to reply. Now, here's why it works. The ask is small. It's natural. It's helpful. And the natural response we see is actually, want to talk to you, may want to talk to you about this. I'm facing it too, right? That's when they raise their hand and say they actually raise their hand. And that's another misconception people do when they map their network. They think their lack of network means they don't know prospects in their network. But your network is most likely the channel to prospects, right? Because they trust you as a person as opposed to them actually having the pain. So it's a different framing of what's the value and what's the positioning of your network. Now, here's what not to do. Hey, name. If you need help with anything from logistics to supply chain to AI to operations to software, let me know. Okay? It's too vague. It's too broad. Nobody sees themselves in it. So specificity wins. The more specific you are, the more people feel like you're speaking directly to them. Business owners tend to think their business or industry has unique problems. From a technical perspective, that is likely not true. But from a marketing perspective, specificity wins every single time. Now, you don't need a lot of conversation for results to add up. It's not the size of your network that counts. It's the activation that matters. One of our members, Yoemi, was initially very resistant to reach out to her network. She was worried she'd become across as annoying or bothering people whose time she respected. So she took the leap and contacted a former colleague despite her fears. Now, her colleague was thrilled and honored that Yoemi reached out. That one message sparked a conversation and then a chain reaction. 3 new introductions, one of which became a client. What began as anxiety became a turning point, built on the courage to simply ask. Now, you already have the relationships. Now map them. Position yourself clearly, begin simple conversations, and that's how to connect. We have, by the way, actual conversation scripts we can send you if anybody wants to give this a shot. Now, that's phase 2. Let's move on to phase 3, converting conversations into clients. This is where most people get nervous because they think conversations equals selling. It doesn't. Conversation is about clarity, not pressure. You don't need to be a salesperson to succeed at this. You don't need charisma or persuasion, although your presence and skill can always help. What you really need to sell is a simple structure that makes people feel understood. Now, the first step of the conversation is diagnosing the situation. Think like a doctor. Ask smart questions first and then listen deeply. Where are you now? This anchors the conversation. You're getting the lay of the land. Next, where do you want to be? You're identifying the desired outcome, the transformation they want. Now, when I do this, I oscillate between 2 questions. What are you trying to achieve? And why is that important? It's like this recursive function. I repeat this question as often as I need to get the full picture. The what and why conversation tells me more about the prospect's goals and psychology than almost anything else. And I'm going to highlight this for you guys. The biggest trap we see in the program is that people focus so much on the how. Someone told them, I want to build an app. And then you dive into that as opposed to dive into why do you want to build an app? That's how you get trapped in being positioned as a doer and not as a leader. So really focus on the why. That's how you get the right frame from day one, from that first conversation. Now, next, what's preventing them from already doing it? If they have an idea what they want to do and why they want to do it, what's preventing them? This is where they articulate obstacles, dangers, and what's broken or under leverage. Listen closely to these answers because your expertise is ultimately what will remove those obstacles if they're the right fit for you. Now, after you diagnose, you mirror their situation back to them and you do it even more clearly than they said it. So you summarize the problem in clean, simple language. So what I'm hearing is, and then share what you've just learned from their responses. When you do this well, they'll say, yes, exactly. That yes creates instant authority. Now they feel heard. I'll give you another caveat on this. A lot of people coming into the space think their resume is what sells. Nobody cares about your resume. Nobody cares about your resume. When was the last time you hired a plumber or electrician to come to your house and you asked them for the resume? Nobody cares about the resume. They care if you can solve the problem. So the way you build authority is not by flashing certificates, is not by flashing your past, is by creating authenticity and trust in real time in the conversation. And that's how you do that. Certainly, by the way, if you can actually give them ideas in real time, that's the best one. Now, step 3, prescribe. This is where you outline the steps you would take if you were helping them without pitching. So you don't need a long explanation. Just if you were to work together, I'd help you do A and then B and then C. Simple, clear, unemotional. If you complicate this step, you lose them. Now, what are the 3 big outcomes they want? Then you stop talking. This is the moment that sells, not your words, but the clarity you created. Give this time to land. If you've done these steps well, they now feel heard and understood and see a path forward. When someone feels understood and sees a clear path, the next question is automatic. How do we work together? Let them ask. Remember, for this workshop, we're focusing on the advisor level of service, low hours, high judgment, high value, a perfect fit for this conversation flow. Now, this is $3,000 to $5,000 a month type retainers. By the way, I don't think I mentioned it. Now, as an advisor, you're offering decision support, clarity, strategy, and direction, not execution. This is exactly why it works in only 2 to 4 hours per week per client, sometimes even 1 hour per week per client. But you're not selling hours. So don't mention any specific hours when you're pitching. Like we don't even want things that rhyme with hours in the program. Really, just stop thinking about it. Stop talking about it. I'm just mentioning this to you from a client service perspective. Now, let me give you a quick example of how this feels like in the real world. A client can be unsure of why their tech team kept missing deadlines. They thought they needed more developers. Expensive, slow. I asked them 3 clarifying questions I shared earlier. After I diagnosed the real issue, turns out they didn't need more developers. They needed better prioritization and a roadmap. I said, what I'm hearing is that your real challenge isn't capacity, it's clarity. Your team isn't building the right things in the right order. And they said, yeah, that's exactly it. So I said, so what I'd recommend is let's rebuild the roadmap. Let's establish weekly prioritization. It's actually like a sprint cadence, and then set a reporting rhythm. And immediately they said, can you help us do that? I didn't pitch. They invited. So that turned into a $3,000 a month advisor engagement was actually like less than 2 hours a week. And this is how leverage works. Conversion is simple when you remove pressure and focus on clarity. To convert, you diagnose, you mirror, you prescribe. That's the whole conversion system. Now, I want to zoom out for a moment and show you the full system. So you take the expertise you already have and package it to a leverage advisory offer. Again, here's what I'm going to do for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. You activate relationships you already have. No marketing engine, no funnels. You run a simple diagnostic conversation that leads to a natural invitation to work together. And every part of this model is intentionally lightweight. It stacks leverage, not labor. Now, let's talk about what you need to do to add 36 to 100,000 of income this year. I'm going to reiterate exactly the steps to begin earning advisor level retainers using this model. Start by defining the repeatable transformation you already deliver. This becomes the core of your advisor offer. Step 2, choose a simple leverage-friendly structure. For example, the CTOs advisor tier contains strategic guidance, twice monthly sprint planning, and unlimited email support, decision clarity. By the way, we have a free download on the website. Which will all email you if you email to us, like a pricing guide and a positioning for this particular offer. 6-month minimum commitment, usually, and a $3,000 a month starting point. This is leverage in action. And step 3, identify 20 to 50 people you already know. Former colleagues, clients, partners, managers, neighbors, parents in your kids' classes, okay? Humans you know. Don't tell me you don't know other humans. You know at least, the people in the Zoom. So next, start talking to people. Use one of the simple scripts I shared, and we have more. Not selling, an inviting conversation. You don't need volume to make a huge difference. You need a handful of meaningful conversations with people who already trust you. At CTOX, we noticed that every 10 conversations lead to about 3 more. Okay. Now, for most professionals, 1 or 2 of every 10 conversations will become a paid advisory clients. That's your $36,000 to $72,000 right there. As you build trust and clarity in your market, the results compound. You'll see opportunities everywhere. This is why advisory level work is so powerful, because it multiplies your income without multiplying your time. Now, let me give you a simple actionable plan to start this week. So identify transformation, choose your advisor structure, like what you're willing to do for the advisor retainer, list your first 20 contacts, send 3 of them simple messages before Thanksgiving, definitely before Christmas, and that's it. You can begin that today. There's nothing I just said, by the way, that you can do in the next 60 minutes, let alone this week. I'll also give you a general comment. This is the best time of the year to sell. By far, the last 6 weeks of the year is the best time of the year to sell. Everybody thinks CEOs are going on vacation. CEOs are not going anywhere. CEOs are planning 2026. CEOs are budgeting 2026. You're going on vacation. The employees are going on vacation. CEOs are not. This is by far the best time to get responses, to get meetings, to get budget. It's incredible. So when you have clarity about your transformation, your niche, and your offer, everything becomes easier. Outreach becomes easier. Conversations become easier. Conversion becomes easier. Momentum comes from clarity, not from effort. Now, your expertise is enough. This is one of the most important things I want you to take away today. You don't need new certifications. You don't need more experience. You don't need additional credentials. The expertise you already have is more than enough to build a $36,000 to $100,000 advisor income stream. Now, most people dramatically underestimate the trust they've built over the years. You already have 20 to 50 people who know your skills, your work ethics, your brain. You don't need strangers. You need conversations. Your niche is hitting in your past, the industries you've served, the teams you've supported, the problems you've solved. You don't need to find a niche. You need to name it. Now, leverage isn't something you build. It's something you discover. You already know how to diagnose problems. You already know how to give directions. You already know how to simplify complex situations. This is leverage. Advisory work gives you income, freedom, and relevance without the operational intensity of running big projects or managing big teams. As an advisor, you're not solving all the problems. You're identifying the right problems. You're guiding the right decisions. A few hours of clarity can save a company hundreds of hours of waste. It's real value. If you implement this, your next year won't look like your last year. You will earn more by working differently, not by working more. Now, I want to give you the clearest possible roadmap so you know exactly what to do after this session. 1, take 20 minutes and articulate the transformation you already know how to deliver. This becomes the core of your offer. ChatGPT is your friend, guys. Okay, no excuses. This is very, very, very simple. 2, a simplest place to start is a CTOX style advisor tier. So this is when we offer strategic as part of the advisor tier. Strategic guidance, twice monthly sprint planning, maybe unlimited email access, 6-month commitment, $3,000 a month baseline. This is a model that's built entirely around leverage as an offer. Make a list of 20 to 50 people you worked with, led, supported, or even collaborated with, had lunch with. Okay, really, just had relationships. This is where revenue lives. Pick 3 people you trust and send one of the simple scripts we covered, and we'll send you more after. These conversations are easier and more natural than you think. Run 1 diagnostic conversation using diagnose, mirror, and prescribe. You'll be shocked how well this works when you do it cleanly. You don't need planning. You can begin this week. You don't need preparation. You don't need a website or a brand or a funnel. You can start it this week with the people you already know. If you take one thing away, let it be this: you are much closer to predictable leverage income than you think. The opportunity is right in front of you, and the work you've already done, the skills you already have, and the people who already trust you. This model doesn't require giant steps. It requires tiny steps done consistently. 1 transformation, 20 relationships, 3 conversations, 1 diagnostic. That's enough to change everything. The professionals who win are not the ones who hustle harder. They're the ones who leverage smarter. That's the shift we're making here. Now, I appreciate you being here today. And if you leave, I hope you leave with some clarity, confidence, and a clear path forward. You really have everything you need to add $36,000 to $100,000 to your bottom line without sacrificing your life or your time. You've got this. And sincerely, you've got this. Start small, start simple, and watch what happens in the next 12 months. Now, if you want a copy of this presentation, as well as those scripts and templates you recommend, just email us. events@ctox.com, and we'll send them directly to you. I don't know if there's also a better way, Barry, but probably the simplest way for us to give it to people.
Yeah, it's fine. I can get it out as well. But I mean, obviously, if people can email, then they've already got the direct link there. Lior, thanks for that. We've got a question at the moment, and I'd say if anyone else has got questions, please feel free, raise your virtual hand, which I think you can do by pressing the react thing. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we'll start with Spencer, who's got some questions here, which, funnily enough, I've written down as a question as well. So if the client asks how many hours for the 3 to 5K, what do you say? How do you manage that?
Perfect.
Any thoughts on that?
So we have a whole podcast about hours that I did, our conversation. So generally, here's why they're asking. Why do you think they're asking how many hours? Spencer, if you can unmute. No, you want to be silent.
Hello. Hi. Yeah. So nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I think they're asking about hours because if I take off my fractional CTO hat and put on my CEO hat, that's the question I would ask.
Yeah, but why? Why are they asking about hours?
Because if I'm going to sign a purchase order, then I want to know exactly what I'm getting.
Oh, there we go. So they want to do math. That's why they're asking about hours. So the reason why they're thinking that hours mean something because they're focused on effort. They're not focused on outcome. So here's how we do it in the program from a pitch perspective. When people ask about hours, doesn't matter if it's the advisory or the 10,000 or more retainer. I say unlimited hours. Why do I say unlimited hours? Because one, it's a pattern interrupt. They can't divide by unlimited, right? It's error. Because then I'm immediately focusing on, if we agree on this is the result you need, this is the company you need, I'm going to give you whatever you need. Period. What, do you want me to stop midweek? If suddenly this week is more stressful in the company and you need more of my time? The answer is no, right? For them, 99% are going to say no. And the context is shifting that conversation into outcome. It's like, what are we trying to do? If they're asking you about hours, you are not clear about outcome. Period. Like you failed in the discovery and the diagnostic, right? Because now you're talking about effort again. You're talking about how. Who cares about how? Don't you want me to deliver the result to you twice as fast? 10 times faster? Like why do hours matter? So the model is, if people ask me, I say, I'm going to put in whatever hours that needs for this service that I'm selling you, right? That's the offer, right? I'm going to give you this level of support. If you need more time and you need my leadership, because advisor is not leadership, right? Meaning you're not managing people, you're not managing vendors, you're not hiring, firing, you're not, you're advising. It's a different offer. If you need my leadership, sure, I have a bigger tier. I have a different offer. That's 10, 12 a month. I can be on top of your team. I can manage hire, fire, roadmap, be accountable for the roadmap. But advisor is not it. The advisor offer is 3, 4, 5,000 a month. I'm going to be on a call with your team once or twice a week. And I'm going to give you connections if you need it, or whatever the frame is, right? Some CTOs are focusing, or not just CTOs, some fractionals are focusing on different areas. So whatever the area is. But if they ask you about hours, you didn't figure out what they actually want as an outcome.
So if it came to the engagement package, then where it is more hands-on, and you're leading people, then in that one, surely you can't. I say unlimited hours in that one because people.
I say unlimited hours on all of them.
Oh gosh.
What do you think is going to happen with unlimited hours? So we have a few things we teach on Engage, right? Which is different than Advisor. And it's not capped at 100,000. It's just an example of, if you get one client, that's 36 a year. If you get 3 clients, it's 100,000. There's no cap. That's consulting income. How many clients as you want. On the Engage side, we have different policies that you use to sell retainers as opposed to hourly contracts, right? So one of them, for example, I don't do standing meetings. So when I offer the Engage offer, there's no standing meetings. I don't do them. And I'm very clear about the outcomes and responsibilities that I have on the role, which is, by the way, we'll send you this. Okay. So it's in our pricing guide and it's free. We give it. So you'll see the frame for it. But it's never about effort. If you do your job well, You figured out what needs to happen and why it needs to happen. And then you can tell them, I can make this happen. And good news, it's going to cost you $150 a year. That's it. That's the frame. The frame is not, I can make this happen for 1,000 hours and you're going to pay me $150,000 a year. It's the wrong frame. You messed up. You're selling effort, selling labor. You're not selling outcome. You're not selling leadership. You're just a consultant. Now, there's a big difference between consulting and fractional. Okay. And we also have a table thing, Donna. We can probably find that also to share. With consulting, you're solving a problem. So once the problem is solved, you're out. You need to figure out another problem. If somebody's hiring a CTO, let's say the full-time, for example, nobody's expecting them to leave after 3 months, right? They're just going to continue solving problems for the business. So their role is not solving problems. Their role is defining problems. So this is the vision, this is where the business wants to go. You're defining that problem and then you're solving it. That's the whole black box, the glass box. And then you're solving it and defining a problem and solving it. So the entire conversation is never about effort. In fact, you should be the smallest part of the budget because you're not doing the work, right? So this is different if you're trying to pitch to be if it's a CTO, like a fractional CTO for a startup, which we highly recommend against, because that you're just basically the only engineer. It's not, you're not really a leader, right? You might have the title, but it's like 2 people. So if you're pitching for leadership services, you're not pitching on how you do it. You're pitching on what's the transformation that's being sold. And it's really never ours. I mean, I can't say more than like our conversation just doesn't come. And if it comes, I decouple it by saying, this is the outcome. I'm going to give you that outcome. So if suddenly 1 week I need to put in 30 hours, that's exactly what I'm going to put in. Now it's your choice as a person. If you get abused by the client, there's a lot of other filters, by the way, on like what makes you choose a client, right? But if you get abused by a client, and I've never been abused by the client, never in my life. And I've run an agency that we got to $1 million a month in the first year. Never in my life. And I always gave unlimited whatever, unlimited meeting time, unlimited designs, unlimited iterations. They don't know. The only reason they're asking it is because of their anxiety on if you're going to do work. But if you're going to deliver outcomes, nobody cares. Nobody ever looks at what you do if you deliver outcomes. That's why, by the way, I can deliver like an engaged retainer for 2 hours a week or 1 hour a week, as opposed to just like an advisor retainer, because highly leverage and I'm focused on outcome and actually delivering. Obviously, if you don't know how to deliver, that's a different, problem. But if you know how to deliver outcomes, our conversation CEOs don't care. They just want the result.
So in an early stage startup or scale up, maybe pre-seed or Series A, you're saying don't go in as a fractional CTO.
I recommend highly against that.
What could you go in as? Would you say never have those types of companies as a target market?
So the reason why I don't like those companies as a target market, and I'll tell you which ones I do like, is a few variables. One is if a company is dependent on funding as opposed to revenue, they're not as resilient. Okay. Second is you're not really working with the decision maker. Unless the board bought you in, the CEO is bound by the board. And I've been in those conversations. Everything's going well. Everything is going, and I'm like, oh, we had a board meeting last weekend. We need to change direction. We need to fire 30 people. I don't like to not work with the decision makers. So in startups, even though you think you're working with the decision maker, you're not. Okay. Then you have the dynamicity of startups. Things change, market changes, product changes, financing changes. It's erratic. So it's not a good way to build your base income. Now I do work with startups once in a while. It's rare for me. And I'm a startup guy that sold companies. I'm like really networked in startups, and I hate working with startups because I've been there. I know exactly the dynamics inside, and I don't want to be a part of it when I'm trying to build confident income that's easy for me to work. So, and you have the other problem of budget. So even if they can afford you, they're expecting you to do the work. And if that's the case, you're highly limited on your income. Your ability to actually do the work, meaning on the keyboard, and generate, let's say, $500,000 a year, which is what most people in that space want to generate, is extremely limited. I mean, if you do that, you're probably working 60 hours a week. But if you want to lead, so other people do the work, Startups can rarely afford it. Not always, just rarely afford it, especially if they're like pre-seed or seed. The best businesses for fractional period, doesn't matter if it's CTO or not, are small to mid-sized businesses. Most of them would be 20 to 100 million in revenue. Okay, now that's a bell curve. You have, obviously, we've seen businesses much smaller, sign $10,000 a month retainers. We've seen businesses much bigger do it as well. Of course, people work with startups, but the people that create a startup book of business have very erratic income. It's inconsistent and a lot of like emotional stress, which, see for my hair, I'm just too old for that. I just don't want that anymore in my life. So you can choose it. You can choose abuse if you want. I just, I'm out of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So small to mid-sized businesses, 20 to 100 million revenue, that's sweet spot. And then, bell curve.
Yeah, I had one question that came up when you were talking. You're very confident that everyone has the right experience, expertise to create an offer like this. What gives you this confidence? Is this exclusive to CTOs, or is it anybody that's hit C-suite? Is there kind of, because I know that you have a high bar for the people that you bring into your program. Is there any kind of anything where you like any prerequisites?
Well, fair enough. I was working under the assumption there's a certain level of expertise in the room, so fair. But I think it's a good assumption. If you've been, like for CTOX specifically, and we have a fairly high bar of people that come in, because we don't have, I actually just had this conversation last night. We don't have an IC to leader track. We don't teach you how to be a leader. We teach you how to sell your leadership. So it's like a business program on how to make money. It's not a training program on how to be a leader, meaning an inherent leader. It's a training about how to be a fractional leader, but not an inherent leader. If you've been in, certainly if you're a C-suite, that's for sure. Like if you got to a C-suite, of course you've done transformations that are relevant to other businesses, which is really the key thing, right? So the key question, this is the big unlock we have with Sanjay, by the way. And he was one of the first ones that we kind of saw it, because he came from the corporate world. He didn't have clients. And his last job, he was there for like 8 years, which is, it's a good amount of time in these last 8 years of technology development, right? But we realized, man, he had done some amazing projects. So when he started speaking to other law firms about the projects he had done at his job, they're like, we want it too, right? Like automate, immigration notices that come from the US government, by mail. Like, yeah, we want it too. We're spending 2 salaries on people opening envelopes and scanning them in, right? So just acknowledging that you've done transformation projects that other companies also want. They're in a different continuum of progress, and you're already on the other side of some solution they want. So that's the context of you already have the expertise. Now, obviously, the more of those transformations you've done, the more types of clients you can take. But more is a bit of a mind trick in our space. Sometimes, people come in the program, they talk to me about a niche, and they're like, I'm afraid it's too small. I'm like, dude, you're trying to create 40,000 a month in income. That's 3 to 6 clients. That's what that number means. There's 3 to 6 clients anywhere, in any niche, in any market. You're not building a business. You're trying to develop a sales team and a pipeline to, get 2,000 down to 800, down to 200 clients. Like that's not what you're trying to do. So we had a member join last week, and just yesterday he was one of his first calls with us, and he was telling me he's in climate tech specifically, and he literally commented, I don't know what to do now with the Trump changes and the budget for climate. I'm like, what does politics have to do with it? There's like thousands of companies in climate tech. You think all of them are going to shut down in the next month? Like, no. I'm like, great. So if they're not shutting down, they're still doing work. Go find them. Like that is this. Now, if I was a private equity group in climate tech, there would certainly be a concern, right? Because it's like market level impact, and I'm trying to do market level moves. But for you as a solo professional, trying to earn, let's say again, 40,000 a month, that's the average that people target. 3, 4, 6 clients, that's it. And they exist. And that would be like, let's say 3 advisory, one of those retainers, and then 3 engaged, like higher level retainers. And you're good. And that exists in really any market, any niche. So the more transformations you have done, the more niches you can attack, but it doesn't really matter. Because if you've done one transformation that's relevant to a few dozen companies, you're good. Because at any point in time, if there's a few dozen companies who you can help, there's probably a handful, 3, 5, 6, that are in market that need your help right now and would pay you money. And it's really thinking in small numbers instead of big numbers.
Before we wrap up, we've probably got time for one more question. If anyone's got any additional questions on that.
Yeah, I got one more question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So in the target companies of 20 to 100 million, the chances are these companies will already have a CTO or fractional CTO.
Zero.
What,
Zero. Zero.
What is it? What's zero?
Zero. It's a zero chance. Almost zero chance.
Really? At that level, they'd have a CTO?
Nope. So so we're in tech. So our frame is tech companies. I'm not talking about tech companies. I'm not talking about companies that sell technology. Maybe that's the frame that you're missing. I'm talking about tech-enabled businesses, not tech businesses. Certainly, if their main business is selling technology, then most likely they have a leader. By the way, the advisor contracts are relevant to any company. Any company. For me, for example, I have a lot of expertise in AI. I've been doing it for years. I have patents in the space. So I can be a CTO advisor to any CTO that exists, right? If they want to implement on whatever, AI stuff, right? Or cyber stuff and stuff like that. So the advisor contract is relevant to any company with or without a CTO. Most businesses, period, do not have a CTO. Period. Easy math, by the way. Look at how many businesses, you're in the UK, Spencer?
Yes.
Yeah, look, Google how many businesses are in the UK. Look at how many CTOs are in the UK. Very simple. Most businesses do not have tech leadership. They have tech solutions, right? They might hire an agency. Their neighbor is a developer, some Indian dev shop. They're doing tech because they have to. You can't not do tech in today's world, right? But they do not have technology leadership. That's why the fractional offer works, by the way. Because you go to a business, let's say it's a $20 million revenue business or even an $80 million revenue business. You go to a business that's not a tech company and you tell them, oh yeah, full-time CTO, X, Netflix, Amazon, whatever it is, starting salary $500,000 a year. They're like, what? The CEO is making $300 a year. Right? These salary scapes don't exist outside of tech. But we can get our experience and expertise and make it accessible for these companies for a fraction of the cost. That's why we say, I can give you 100% of the outcome for a fraction of the price. I'm not giving you a fraction of the outcome. The reason is, and by the way, I'm a fractional CTO for like a dozen companies in that size. Okay. And they didn't have one before me. A couple had one. By the way, a couple had a full-time CTO before me. And then I came in as fractional. Because they just don't need that amount from me. It's not that complex. Let's say one of the companies I'm just a meeting right after this, they're about 80 million in revenue, annual recurring. They're in healthcare. And I built an entire engineering and product team from scratch. They had 11 devs in an outsourced form before I came in. And now there's a whole product team, engineering team, 25, 30 people. And it takes me 2 hours a week to do this company. Because it's a small team. What am I going to stare at paint dry? What am I going to do? It's just not that complicated. And that's where most of the fractional offer works, right? When the complexity of the company doesn't require full-time. Also, by the way, size and revenue are actually not a good measure. The reason, it's like the CTO of Disney. Okay, CTO of Microsoft, one CTO for Microsoft, right? What are you going to say? You need for every 100 employees, you need a CTO? There's one. It's leadership. It's not management. With management, you have a real constraint. How many humans do you need to oversee and manage those tasks and so on? Right? So time is a real constraint. But with leadership, you can lead 100 people, 100,000 people, just so you can lead 100 people. It's just knowing how to do it and not fall. Most of the fractional CTO challenges that we see people coming in, it's so hard for them to not touch the keyboard. So they get stuck. And their time gets wasted.
So in those 2 hours,
yeah,
those wonderful 2 golden hours, What does that look like? How is it broken down?
It's not structured. So usually we have a very structured process on how we deliver as a fractional CTO that we teach. So we call it the functional technology framework. I'm pretty sure we talk about it in one of our podcasts. So we do quarterly planning for the initiatives. The initiatives either de-risk, unclog, or scale the business. Each initiative, let's say, you can call it a project, has specific resources that are assigned to it. Developers, project managers, directors, whatever that is. But your name is on none of them. So if you manage the initiatives well and the projects well, there is a who that's assigned to every what. You're not any of the who's. So your job is to help the other leaders, the head of product, head of engineering, if they have it. And then I have my cadence with them, but it's not a weekly cadence. It just ends up being an hour or two a week. But I have my quarterly planning, I have monthly meetings, again, not structured really. And then they just ping me when there's an issue and they need my help. So it averages to 2 hours. It's not actually 2 hours.
And what happens if multiple companies ping you at the same time for an emergency?
It just never happened. And it doesn't happen. That's anxiety speaking. It's not reality speaking. Like, what are the odds 4, 6, 10 companies at the same time would have an emergency? Never happened. I've been doing this for years now. Never happened. By the way, if it does happen, let me ask you differently. What if there's an emergency and you're sick?
You just say you're sick.
Yeah, there we go. So if 2 companies said an emergency, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll talk to you at 10, I'll talk to you at 11. You can build any constraint you want in your life. You don't need to make up a constraint like, 2 companies have a problem at the same time or 10 companies. 10 companies have a problem at the same time. You're making 7 figures a year. Please pay somebody to help you, but it's just, it really doesn't happen. And if it happens, deal with it. Like, it's just not a big deal. Like, time is real. There's only so much you can do when you triage a challenge, right? You need to listen to it. You need to do intake for the information. You need to prescribe. That doesn't take that long. And the only, I would say something happened. Are you a CTO as well?
Yeah.
So, Cloudflare went down last week, and that affected like 4 clients at the same time. But I have staff, right? So it bubbled up, and then everybody's on Slack. The first company that figured it out, big company, 50 million revenue, 50 million revenue. They figured it out because everybody was like, what went down? Also for CTOX, we use Go High Level as our CRM. And suddenly our team couldn't make calls because like Twilio went down because Cloudflare went down. And so first company figured it out, and I just copy pasted the message and I told the other companies. And that's the most concurrent thing that ever happened to me in my career, stuff like that. Yeah, but I would say, listen, business is a mental game. Okay, like when people come into the program, and I'm going to tell you all of this, I tell them you're entrepreneurs that happen to be CTOs. So you need to learn the entrepreneur psyche, the entrepreneur mindset. Managing anxiety and hope is a big thing. Both of them are made up. It's this insight you have on the future. I think the future is going to be good. You call it hope. I think the future is going to be stressful. You call it anxiety. But both of them are not real. And it's an absolute choice every morning to decide what you're going to focus on. Okay, I didn't realize we're out of time, but thank you guys. Hopefully it was helpful. Send us an email if you want some of those PDFs and templates. These are real things we give inside the program. We'll definitely give it for free for this group. And we're also doing a bunch of there's lunches with Lior if you ever want to learn more. There's webinars. Our podcast is great. Like at some point I told Marisa, my partner, I'm like we're giving away the farm. And the decision was we should. So you can really just listen to a podcast and make money. It's great. Juliana, just email us at events@ctox.com and the team is going to email it to you back.
Yeah. And any other questions, Spencer? If you have any other questions or anybody else has questions, just if you send them to events@ctox, we'll get them answered and send them back to you.
Sweet. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.